The division-leading Kings head north, and another young King makes a solid first impression. Details on that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the LA Kings played Game 16 of the NHL season this past Saturday, a game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. We're going to recap that game and also get to today's game in Calgary against the Flames. But we'll start with that game on Saturday, and there would be some lineup changes for the LA Kings in this one. We would see a top line centered by Captain Anze Kopitar with his usual running mate, Adrian Kempe, but Akil Thomas would be back on that top line. Thomas replacing Kevin Fiala, who would be on the second line, centered by Philip Deneau, and Trevor Moore would be the other winger along with Fiala. The third line would feature Quentin Byfield at center with Alex Laferriere and Warren Foegele, a familiar trio for a while now. And the fourth line would see Samuel Helenius making his NHL debut. Trevor Lewis and Andre Lee would be the wingers, with the injury to Alex Turcotte and the suspension to Tanner Jeannot. That's opened up a opportunity for Samuel Helenius, and so he gets to make his NHL debut, gets to take the solo lap by himself during the pregame skate. Alex Turcotte has been placed on injured reserve, but it has not changed his outlook or his status as far as his injury goes. It's just a kind of a formality, if you will. They needed to put him on injured reserve so they could call somebody up as far as the roster size. So as far as we know, no negative news about Turcotte, still listed as day-to-day, but officially placed on injured reserve so they could call up Samuel Helenius. The defensive pairings, the top pairing would be Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov. The second pairing of Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark. And the third pairing of Andreas Englund with Jordan Spence. Kyle Burrows would be out of the lineup after playing the game before. And David Rittich would get the start in net as Darcy Kemper had the start in the previous game. And so the Kings decided to go with number 2 goaltender, David Rittich, in this game against Columbus. As for my big question going into this game, would the Kings still play at a high level as they did against Nashville, Minnesota, and pretty much Vancouver, but finish on more of their opportunities, especially with the power play? As far as the game summary in this one, well, the Kings looked lethargic and lackluster in the first period. Kevin Fiala had a very bad turnover that led to the Blue Jackets scoring the first goal of the game, and the Kings falling behind 1-0 after one period. Now, I expected the Kings to come out and play a much better second period after looking pretty bad in the first period, perhaps getting some choice words from their head coach, Jim Hiller, in between periods. But regardless, the Kings definitely came out and played much better after a slow, sloppy opening period. Vladislav Gavrikov and Warren Foegele would score goals for LA to give the Kings a 2-1 lead after 2 periods. In the third, Trevor Moore scored a shorthanded goal, but Columbus would score seconds later on the same power play. The Kings still had the 1-goal lead. 3-2 was the score for Alex Laferriere. He gets on the board, his team-leading 9th goal of the season. That would extend the Kings' lead in the third period to 4-2, and then LA defenseman Brant Clark would finish off the scoring, icing the game with an empty net goal. The Kings take it 5-2, improve to 9-4-3 on the season for 21 points. That includes a 4-1-1 record on home ice. Kings bounce back from their 4-2 loss to Vancouver. And while the Kings have yet to win 3 games in a row this season, it should also be pointed out that the Kings have not lost 2 games in a row in a stretch over their last 13 games, where they have posted an 8-3-1 record. As for the game stats in this one, Mentioned the Kings get the 5-2 victory. Shots on goal did favor Columbus, 26-23. The power plays, Kings were 1 for 4, while the Blue Jackets were 1 for 3. Faceoffs favored LA 33-25. The hits favored Columbus 16-8. And block shots favored LA 22-12. As far as my big takeaway from this game, Kings step up after a rough first period and then close it out in the third period. So even though they didn't get off to the start that they would like, generally speaking, at least they were able to rebound. And then in the end, they didn't make this one. They didn't make us have to sweat this one out. The Kings closed it out the way they need to do on home ice against a supposed lesser opponent. As for the quote of the game in this one, we will check in with Kings defenseman Mikey Anderson talking about the slow start and then the Kings getting going after that. He said, quote, I thought we did a good job or thought they did a good job kind of clogging up the neutral zone. We struggled to get through it and get pucks behind them. I thought the second was a little more direct. We played a little bit more below their goal line. We got a few ozone shifts, but I think it was a little bit cleaner for us, maybe a little simpler. That's the recipe sometimes, end quote. So what was good for the LA Kings from a team standpoint in this one? Well, they showed resiliency, getting off to that slow start, but able to turn it around and really get going in the second and third periods. And then again, as I mentioned, after reclaiming the lead, they closed it out. They did not let Columbus get back in this game. They didn't let him score a goal, then pull the goalie late to try and make things interesting. Kings took care of business in the third period. LA got a lot of contributions from several different players, which we've seen a lot this year. 5 different goal scorers in the 5 goals scored, 2 of them coming from defensemen. And the penalty kill continues to be, I still think, solid for the LA Kings. So what was not so good for the Kings from a team standpoint? Well, obviously the bad start was not how the Kings want to get going, especially on home ice. Now, if the Kings are going to be one of the better teams in the league, they can't start slow and they can't take periods off. And it looked like they were taking that first period off. The power play, still an issue, even though the Kings did get a power play goal. But we'll see. It's improving. 9 power play goals in 16 games actually doesn't sound that bad. And as far as the stats go, which we'll check in a little bit later, they're middle of the pack in the NHL in the power play. It seems worse to me, but it still needs to be better. It's not one of the worst in the league, but still something for the Kings to work on. All right, coming up next, we're going to look at some individuals from the Kings win over the Blue Jackets and talk about a player making a nice NHL debut. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less based on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. For tonight, will Alex Laferriere of the Kings have more or less than a half point? Will Trevor Moore have more than 2.5 shots on goal? Will Anze Kopitar have more or less than 19 minutes of ice time, or more or less than 10 faceoffs won? All of those are bets that you can get in on, picks that you can make involving our LA Kings for tonight. Just go to the PrizePick app and you could be a winner, and you could win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action in most of the states, including California. Download the PrizePicks app today and use your code LOCKEDONNHL, and you will get $50 off instantly when you play $5. That's the code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive your $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And we are so lucky here in Southern California to be able to check out so many different sporting events. Obviously, the Kings. You've got Chargers, Rams in the NFL. I was at the Chargers game on Sunday. Rams are playing tonight. You got Lakers and Clippers in the NBA, USC and UCLA sports as well. But not just about sports. We've got other events as well, theater, comedies, concerts. But no matter what you're into, you need to do what I do and use Gametime for all your ticket needs. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets even easier for your favorite live events. Filters out the fluff. It shows you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, let's get into some individuals for the LA Kings in the latest win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I want to start with Kevin Fiala. And we might need to do a check after every game. Did we get good Kevin or bad Kevin? And I mentioned earlier in the game summary that Kevin Fiala made a very poor decision with a backhand pass out of his own zone. It got intercepted by a Blue Jackets player in the neutral zone. He skates in, makes a pass into the center. They put it in the net and grab a 1-0 lead with 6 minutes and 34 seconds left in the game. So that was bad Kevin. And he did not play again the rest of the period. Now, in between periods, Jim Hiller, the head coach of the Kings, said he talked with Kevin Fiala. And after that, Fiala did take his normal shifts and did play on the special teams in the second and third periods. Fiala finished with no points and was a -1 in the game. Afterwards, head coach Jim Hiller was asked about Kevin Fiala being benched and what he expects from him. And Hiller had this to say, quote, "Kevin has the green light to make plays when the plays are there," end quote. And he even paused longer than I did in between those two statements. And that's the key for Kevin Fiala. He can definitely be a player that tries to make difficult plays, tries to make kind of the fancy, spectacular passes. And if they connect, then the Kings usually get a really good scoring chance out of it. However, he also needs to factor in time and situation when he tries to make some of those riskier plays. Now, in your own zone, a tie game or trailing, no, that's not the time to try a risky pass through the middle of the ice. Up a goal in the other team's zone, okay, or maybe down a few goals late where you're more desperate. Sure, you could try a riskier pass to try and get back in the game. But this is the second time this season that Kevin Fiala has been benched. And he also had the 1-game suspension for missing a team meeting. So despite all that, Kevin Fiala still has 7 goals and 12 points in 15 games. That's good enough for second on the team in goals and 5th in points. Now, with that, I don't know how much we've gotten of good Kevin Fiala. Maybe, 75% of the season we've gotten good Kevin, and then maybe 25% of the season we've gotten bad Kevin. But he's an important player for the Kings. And when he's on his game, the results are usually good for LA. Problem is, Fiala is in his 10th full NHL season. He should know by now when is the right time to try something a bit risky and when is it smarter to not. And I mean, I don't know how many times in his career he's been benched multiple times in a season. It's already happened twice. I did talk about the first time when Kevin Fiala was benched. The Kings were up by a couple of goals, and I think there was 1 period of play left. And I said it was the perfect opportunity for Jim Hiller to make that kind of move. The Kings were already winning. They were probably going to win anyway. And he was preaching about taking too many penalties, and Fiala took a couple penalties. He's like, okay, I can make an example out of him. I can also teach him a bit of a lesson because he is a guy who can get caught up in retaliation penalties. So it was convenient for him to do it. This time, the Kings were trailing. There were still 2 periods left, and he said, I'm sending the message to Kevin Fiala, but I still am not going to cut off my nose to spite my face, right? I still need a Kevin Fiala, most likely to help me win a game. So good Kevin, bad Kevin. We're going to watch this the rest of the season. Look, I'm a Kevin Fiala fan. I think when he's on his game, he's got elite skills and he can really help the Kings go to that next level. But again, he does have those issues and they keep cropping up, whether it's taking the bad penalties or it's making a risky play that turns into a scoring chance the other way. Just needs to be smarter and understand the situation. So hopefully he can, again, he's been around the block You would have thought he would have learned this by now, but hopefully these two benchings will be the final two that we see this season for Kevin Fiala. Did want to talk about the rookie Christian Helenius making his NHL debut. The 21-year-old had a strong training camp and preseason, showed a lot of good signs, and has great size at 6'6". And there was speculation that, hey, this is a guy who opened some eyes and he could be a legitimate NHL player maybe in a year or two. Certainly, though, he, as I mentioned, getting a chance with a suspension to Tanner Jeannot, the injury to Alex Turcotte, to get an opportunity. And this is his chance to try and take advantage of that. And I thought he did for at least one game. Don't want to overreact to only one game. But he did center the fourth line. He played 10 minutes and 13 seconds. He did pick up his first career NHL point as well. Made a really skilled little pass, kind of a redirect to Akil Thomas, who skated in on a 2-on-1 with Warren Foegele, got the pass over, and Foegele closed the door on what was a very nice goal, and it was started by Samuel Helenius. He also had a strong shot on goal on a rush later on in the game, and I think I saw he was 2 for 2 in the faceoff circle. Not too physical with his size. Maybe that's something he'll get a little bit more comfortable with going forward. But, and I don't want to overreact to just one game, but Samuel Helenius has made a nice first impression. And do I expect him to now take over Tanner Jeannot's position? No, I don't. Jeannot has been okay. One goal and 2 points in 15 games isn't going to get anybody all excited. But he's been all right. I don't think he's been terrible. But when you see the size and the skill of a young, energetic Christian Helenius, it does make you wonder. Now, Tanner Jeannot is an unrestricted free agent after the season. If they feel like Samuel Helenius is ready to maybe take a fourth line centering spot, or, the Kings could certainly decide to do that. We'll see. But again, a real encouraging first NHL game for Christian Helenius, who, again, had some nice plays out there. He didn't look lost. I'd like to see him maybe try and use his size a little bit more and be a little bit more physical. But overall, it's clear to see with that size and with that wingspan that he still definitely has some skills of kind of a smaller player. Want to bring up Alex Laferriere again, another goal for him. Beautiful deflection in front of the net. And I mentioned it in the offseason that he needed to be a guy that was going to embrace that role of being more blue collar and getting around the net. And he certainly has done that and more so. Also, 9 goals on the year, as I mentioned, through 16 games. He's the Kings' leading goal scorer. Remember, he had 12 the entire previous season, playing 81 games his rookie year. He's now on pace to score 46 goals. And that's probably not going to happen. But as I said, I think a 30-goal season for Alex Laferriere is very doable. And great to see him embrace that role of being somebody who goes to the net and getting deflections and getting screens, and also doing a nice job on the power play as well when he's in there. But a great sophomore season so far for Alex Laferriere. And I did want to touch on goaltender David Riddick. Turned aside 24 of 26 shots to earn his 5th win of the year. He's 5-3. The 2 goals he allowed, we talked about the Fiala turnover. He also allowed a power play goal for Columbus. So not a lot of shame either of those goals being scored. Certainly could have got some help from his teammates. But he did have some big saves in the game. We did see a little bit of big save Dave. The only issue he had seemed like he was having some trouble squeezing the puck in his catching glove. So I did notice a few times when he went to glove the puck, it would squirt back out. And unfortunately, there were no Columbus players there to try and take advantage of a rebound situation. But solid job by the Kings' number 2 netminder, David Riddick. I did want to mention Vladislav Gavrikov, back on the top pairing with Mikey Anderson, played a team-high 22 minutes and 50 seconds, scored his 2nd goal of the season, and he is the King that leads the NHL, or I should say the Kings. We talk about 2 goals from the defense, one Gavrikov and one Brant Clark. And yeah, it was in the empty net, but it still counts. The Kings are the leading team in the NHL getting goals from their defensemen. 11 goals so far this season from the defense. for the LA Kings. And this is without their leading scorer from the blue line last season, Drew Doughty. So I don't know how long it's going to last. Hopefully all season. That would be amazing. But give it up to the guys on the blue line for chipping in offensively. Even the guys like Joel Edmondson we've seen get a few goals and get a few assists here and there. And speaking of defense, I did want to mention Mikey Anderson showed no signs at all of the scary injury in the previous game when he took the puck to the head and got cut pretty bad. He played 22 minutes and 20 seconds of ice time, second only to Vladislav Gavrikov on the Kings team. So it looked like Mikey Anderson is back and doing well. All right, we still need to give our 3 stars of the game out, and the Kings are heading into Canada, holding on to first place. We'll check the Pacific Division standings and more. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, Kings fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And, of course, FanDuel is there for you to bet on college football, the NFL, NBA, college basketball, and, of course, the NHL. The Kings are favored by a goal and a half tonight in Calgary. Over-under is 5.5 goals. We got Monday Night Football in Los Angeles. The Rams hosting the Miami Dolphins. LA favored by 2.5 points. The over-under in that game is 48.5. And also not far from where the Rams will be playing tonight, the Clippers will be hosting. Actually, the Clippers are on the road. I take that back. Clippers are on the road at the Thunder. They are 7-point underdogs. Over-under in that game against Oklahoma City is 218.5. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds and your favorite sports and teams on the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. Will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. All right, want to give out our 3 stars of the game for the win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. And our number 3 star, I'm going to go with Samuel Hellenius in his NHL debut, picking up a point. And this is a little bit of the feel-good story. There were certainly some other guys that could have deserved to have gotten this award. But I thought for his first NHL game, thought he looked good. Cool to see him get his first point. And he's going to get a few more opportunities when it's all said and done. So Samuel Hellenius, my number 3 star, he played 10 minutes and 13 seconds, had that 1 assist for his first NHL point. So very cool for Samuel Hellenius. My number 2 star, I'm going to go with Trevor Moore for his shorthanded goal. He did lead the team with 5 shots on goal. So Trevor now with 2 goals on the season. Kings would love to get him going here. But regardless, he has been doing the other things to help the Kings win, including killing penalties. And I would say Trevor Moore, probably the Kings' most lethal shorthanded forward that they have out there on the ice. But our number 1 star, my number 1 star, I thought it was a pretty clear choice, is Warren Foegele with a goal and an assist. On the season, Warren Foegele now has 6 goals and 9 assists in 16 games. Make that 6 goals and 9 points in 16 games. He had a career high 20 goals for the Oilers last year, so the 6 goals so far. Pretty nice start for Warren Foegele, who I think has fit right in and has been the most impactful skater for the LA Kings this offseason. Certainly wouldn't have him ahead of Darcy Kemper as far as the new additions that have come in and played really well. But Warren Foegele has looked, I thought, really good for the LA Kings so far this season. So the Kings are back in action on the road this evening in Calgary. It's the first of 3 meetings against the Flames. Kings check in with a 9-4-3 record, number 1 in the Pacific Division, 3rd best in the Western Conference, and 5th best in the entire NHL with 21 points in 16 games. Calgary is 7-5-3 on the season, 4th place in the Pacific Division, 6th in the Western Conference, and 12th in the NHL with 17 points in 15 games. Now, after the Flames started the year, pun intended, red hot, going 5-0-1, they are since 2-4-2. Now, in their latest game, they lost in a shootout to Buffalo by a score of 3-2. Kings are led by Captain Andrei Kopitar here with his 17 points. Alex Laferriere leading the team in goal scoring with 9. And Laferriere also with 15 points. Adrian Kempe with 14 points for the Kings. Flames are led by their leading goal scorer, Rasmus Andersson, with 11 points. Not exactly a household name. He is the only player in double digits in points so far on the season. Jonathan Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, and Matt Coronado are all tied with the lead in goal scoring with 5 apiece. Getting ready for the game, we talked about David Rittich getting the start for the Kings in net in the previous game, so it looks like Darcy Kemper will go tonight, the Kings' number one netminder. His record on the season, 4-1-3 for in eight starts, 8 games he's played. Goals against average of 2.67 and a save percentage of 890. Flames have used 2 goalies pretty much consistently. That would be Dan Vladar, who's 3-3-2, and Dustin Wolf, who is 4-2-1. Vladar has a 2.60 goals against average. Wolf is at 3.07. Both players have identical 906 save percentages. Vladar got the start in the last game this past Saturday for the Flames in that one. As far as the numbers in this one, the Kings check in 12th in the NHL in average goals per game at 3.38. Calgary's 20th at 2.8. The Kings are 9th in the NHL in allowing goals per game at 2.88. The Flames are 13th at 3.07. Kings power play 22nd in the league, 16.4%. Calgary is actually worse, 24th in the league on the power play at 15.9%. The Kings are 16th in the NHL in the penalty kill, killing off 78.7% of the penalties against. The Flames are 27th in the NHL at 72.3%. Kings Flames will get underway at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time here in Los Angeles. It will be broadcast locally on the FanDuel Sports Network, nationally on ESPN Plus, and you can listen to the game on the 710 ESPN app. Did want to take a quick look at the Pacific Division standings. Your LA Kings currently on top in the Pacific Division. Again, the record 9-4-3 for 21 points. They went 3-1 over the last week, beat Nashville, beat Minnesota, lost to Vancouver, and then beat Columbus. The Golden Knights, Vegas Golden Knights, are in second place. They went 1-0-1 this past week. They've got 20 points, 1 point behind the Kings. They beat the Oilers and then lost to the Kraken. The Canucks are 7-3-3 for 17 points. They're 2-1 this past week. They beat Anaheim and lost to Edmonton. The Flames are 7-5-3 for 17 points. They did not do that well this week. Calgary, of course, the opponent for the Kings tonight. 1-0-2 was the record over the past 7 days. They beat Montreal, but then lost to Boston and Buffalo. Oilers are 7-7-1 for 15 points, and right now Edmonton is in fifth place in the Pacific Division. They went 1-2 this week. They lost to New Jersey and Vegas, but beat Vancouver. The Seattle Kraken are 6-8-1 on the season for 13 points, 1-1 over the past week. Lost to Colorado, beat Vegas. The Ducks are in 7th place, 5-7-2 on the season for 12 points. They went 1-2 this week. Lost to Vancouver, and Minnesota beat Columbus. And the San Jose Sharks tied with the Ducks in points, both with 12. But the Sharks do have more regulation losses at 5-9-2. But over the past week, the Sharks did go 2-1. They beat Columbus and New Jersey, and they ended up losing to Minnesota. Coming up for the LA Kings and for you as everydayers on Tuesday's show, we'll obviously recap the Kings-Flames game. Wednesday, we'll preview Kings Avalanche and see if we can't get a special guest for that show. Thursday, we'll recap that game. And then, of course, on Friday, it's another Kings fan feedback show. Hope you will join us then. If you would like to send an email, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You're always welcome to post your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section as well. And we'd love you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. And as always, go Kings go. Well,